This is the Meow Bag by Studio 77 and I'm going to show you exactly how to make it step by step. Hi, I'm Emma from Studio 77. Welcome back to the channel. On this video, I'm going to show you how to make this really cute meow bag. Now, how cute is this? It's got the cat ears. The cat ears flow around the top of the bag as well. We've got a slip pocket in the front, so you can add a panel if you like on here, or you can pattern match it like I have on this one. On the back, we have got a zipper pocket as well, so you can put those little secret things that you want to have easily accessible on the outside. Then on the inside, we have got, if we open up the zipper, it's a two-way zipper as well. On the inside, we have got a slip pocket in there, and we've got another zip pocket as well, so you can put all your things organized on the inside. There is a gusset going right the way around the outside of the bag. Can be a little bit tricky on those corners, so that's why this isn't really a beginner project. But if you go slow, and I'll give you my tips and tricks along the way as well, I think you'll get there no problem. There's different ways we can get around that with the use of like a zipper foot. Sometimes we use a walking foot. Sometimes we use a hump jumper. So if you've got all those, do check out this video if you haven't, and then you can see if or where you may need them. You want to think about different materials depending on which machine you're using. So if you're using a domestic, it's fine to have the vinyl or cork for, say, the gusset, and maybe one of the panels on the front as well. I wouldn't do faux leather or vinyl for the slip pocket and the front panel and the gusset. You're going to find it's a little bit too bulky in your seams. So just bear that in mind when you're picking your materials. Now, this pattern was originally part of the 77 Club. Hello members, if you are watching early as part of the club. If you want to find out more about the 77 Club, I will put a link in the description below so you can find out all the information for that. On this video, I'm not going to be showing you how to make the crossbody strap. I'm going to presume, as you're not a beginner, if you're tackling this project, that you know how to make one, but also I will link in the description how to make your own strap. There are, of course, all the instructions in the pattern for how to make a strap as well, and how to make the webbing strap. Like I say, if you wanted to make your own strap from cotton or vinyl, I will pop that in as a link to that video in the description below. If you have any questions, queries, comments, or anything that you'd like to mention, do pop them in the comments section below and I will reply to them as soon as I can. If you're a member and you have any queries, pop them into the Facebook group and I will get back to you there too. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to do an applique version. So I'm going to be making this into a Hello Kitty bag rather than the standard Meow bag that comes with the pattern. I will link in the description as well a video on how to make your own appliques using your Cricut or any cutting machine and Illustrator. Everything that I have used is linked in the description below, as well as where to get this pattern when it is on retail release. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is to download the pattern, and you can find that in the description below. If you're using the projector file or SVGs for your cutting machine, just make sure that you check all the notes as well and go by the cutting chart. So you want to cut out all your pieces and you want to interface them as well, just like it says in the cutting chart, like I say. Okay, so I've got all my pieces cut out. Now for this one, I'm going to be using almost all vinyl on the exterior. I have got a domestic sewing machine. I'm using a Bernina 480. If you are planning on doing all vinyl exterior, I would say that you might want to change either the front panel that goes behind the slip pocket or the front slip pocket, which is what I'm doing. I'm going to do that out of cotton, as you will see. I am using this vinyl, which is from Little Stitcher Sews. It's really lovely as it's quite thin, but also still structured. So it will go through on my domestic machine, no problem. So just bear that in mind if you are going to be doing all vinyl. If you are more of a beginner or you're not as confident, then you may want to do the whole bag out of a woven cotton, like a quilting weight cotton or a cotton canvas. So I am going to be doing vinyl, like I say. So I've got my pieces here. Now, when it comes to the fusible fleece or fusible foam, I'm using fusible foam, you want to make sure that you cut out that back zipper pocket as it shows you in the instructions. The yellow line is for the interfacing, and then the black line is the one we will use later on when it comes to cutting out the actual pocket for turning through. I have interfaced this because I'm using vinyl. Like I say, I have used the Pink Pony Designs technique. I'll just show you that quickly. Fusible foam is really tricky to adhere to vinyl. It just does not want to go because of course you can't press it from the front. So I'm going to show you how I do that. And like I say, this is a Pink Pony Designs tutorial. I'll link that in the description as well if you want to see the full tutorial. Okay, so here I've got the gusset piece, which again, I'm making mine out of vinyl. And I have interfaced it with woven on the back as well. This vinyl is quite great because you can put a fair amount of heat onto the back. Never put the iron onto the front of the vinyl. You will ruin it, it will burn, it will melt, and you will ruin your vinyl. So I've got my fusible foam here. This is actually not a fusible foam. So if you are using vinyl and you have some sew-in foam, you can do it with that as well. I am then going to lay over my medium weight non-woven. So this is Lizaline F220, and I'm going to lay it over centered. You can see I've cut it quite a lot bigger. I've put my iron onto, I think it is a cotton setting actually, a wool or cotton setting I would recommend. So kind of almost maximum, but not quite. I'm then going to fuse the non-woven to the back of the fusible foam so that it's kind of centered. Get that nicely adhered. I'm not touching my iron on the vinyl at the moment. I know that the vinyl is still underneath, but I'm not actually touching it on there. And then make sure it's centered again. I want to make sure that the foam is in the middle so that you've got the same seam allowance all around. It doesn't matter if you're a smidge over, you're going to perfect that when you're sewing anyway, but ideally you want to try and keep it centered. I'm going to put my Teflon sheet underneath, my trusty Teflon sheet, just so that any edges of that F220 doesn't go onto my wool pressing mat or my ironing board. And I'm going to smush down the edges. I don't know if you can see. Hopefully you can see. So those edges, now I have found if you do it without kind of pushing it down from the middle and you do it kind of following the edge of the foam, it isn't as good as if you kind of squish the foam down and then press as you go. Okay. And then you can go along the edge after. Do the same on this side. Having that Teflon sheet means that it won't stick to the underneath. And hopefully you can see that that is nicely sandwiched. The foam is sandwiched between the vinyl and the F220, keeping it nice and snug. When we do our stitch lines along those edges for our seams, it's going to keep that all really nicely in place. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the other side. And then I'm just going to cut around the excess so that it's the same size as the vinyl piece. Okay, so once you've fused all the fusible foam to the backs of your pieces that need it, we are then going to go ahead and put our zipper pulls on. Now, the things that you're going to need for this project is you're going to need 3 different zippers. You're going to need a long one with 2 pulls on. You're going to need a shorter one for the outside zipper and number 5 again. These are both number 5 size, and that needs to have a pull on. And then you're going to need a number 3 zipper for the inside. You could use a number 5 again for the inside. I just prefer to use a 3 on this project, but totally up to you. Now, if you haven't put zipper pulls on, really simple. This hardware is from Country Can Designs. I'll pop a link in the description as well. So you want to open up the zipper tape just a short way, and then you want to turn your pull so that the double end, not the single end, the double end is facing the long bit of the zipper. Place one side in, and then carefully, you can pull it open a bit more, place the other side in, and you're trying to get them so that they're even. And then you just want to hold the end down, and you should be able to, with a bit of a wiggle, pull the zipper pull on. Now you can get jigs and fancy things like that, totally fine as well. The other thing is that I want to mention is, you see here I'm getting that lump. You want to make sure that you don't have that. So I would just open that up. It's just because one of the teeth aren't exactly aligned. Can you see that one is slightly longer than that one? So all I'm going to do is I've undone it like so. Now the teeth are completely aligned and you haven't got that lump. And then I'm going to place the teeth back in. You can sort of squish them in with these zippers so that they are matching. Then you haven't got that, you've got a little bit of a lump. Of course you're going to have a little bit of a lump just because that's how it is, but you haven't got that discrepancy. Okay, and that's going to make it a bit easier when we come to sewing our zipper in if both ends are closed like that. I recommend at this point that you do a basting stitch on each end to stop your pull from coming off. So you want to do that with the shorter one, and then the longer one you want your zippers facing the same way. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. Open up the tape, pop that on, try and get it as even as we can. Now it's even more important on these ones that you get the teeth really nicely aligned, or you're going to get a gap in the middle. Can you see it's gone, that one's gone really wonky there. Definitely don't want to keep that in, or you're going to get that lump in your project and you're going to get a wonky zipper. Okay, so I've done that, opened it all the way to the end, just like we did on the short one. And now we're going to turn it around and we're going to put the other one on. Now this is the bit that can be a bit fiddly. I've got one side that's longer, so that is going to be a little bit of an advantage. And we're going to place the other one in, and we're trying to keep the teeth as straight as we can. Doesn't always happen on the first go. You want to try and keep that as aligned as you can. That's not too bad actually. There's probably one zipper tooth out compared on this side than there is to this side. Let's have a little look. Is it going to line up as we go? Yeah, I think that's okay. I might try and do it one more time. See if I can get it even closer. I think that might be even closer. So there's an even bulge on both sides. So we know that that is really nicely aligned. There's no kind of, it's the same width on each side in between. Okay, so then you've got your zippers facing the same way. So you want to prep those up, and you want to, like I say, baste each end just to make sure they don't come off. The inside zipper of mine is the same. I've had to put the pull on, so I'm going to baste those ends as well. And then you also want to burn the ends of your zipper just to be sure that that's nice and secure. Stops it fraying. Be super careful, of course, when you're doing this. If it does catch fire like that, you can just blow it out. That one extinguished itself, so that was okay. Then the other things that you're going to need 2 rivets plus any rivets for your strap. You're also going to need 2 lobster clasps for your strap and 2 D-rings. Now I'm not going to show you how to make the strap on this video. There is a link in the description to another video where I go through how to make any crossbody strap. There's the dimensions in the pattern, so you just need to follow along with that video if you haven't done one before. So the lobster clasps, I'm not actually going to show you how to use those, but you're going to need those for your strap if you're making your own strap. You're also going to need a couple of scraps of Decaville Light and when we come to doing the rivets, these are going to help make it nice and secure on the back. Okay, so we're going to do our slip pocket first, our front slip pocket. I'm going to do this one a little bit different. I'm going to make this look like a Hello Kitty. Now, you don't have to do this, you can just do your plain slip pocket, in which case you'll skip this part. First things first though, I am going to make the slip pocket so that then I can stitch the appliques on top. So you want to place your two front slip pocket pieces right side together, like so. And what I haven't done is I haven't marked on the slip pocket mark, the little notch. So I'm just going to fold that there, mark that on, and on the other side as well within the seam allowance. Like so. And what we're going to do is we're going to stitch around that top edge, and we're going to finish at that point, or those points. And I'm using a Gutermann thread for all my structural seams and a Tex 40 for my top stitching on this project. I'm also using a size 90 Microtex needle. Okay, so I've stitched around that top seam. I'm then going to snip into those notches right almost up to the edge of the stitching, making sure you don't actually cut into the stitching. I've also got some pinking shears, but you could snip into the corners with triangles, or snip into the seam with triangles. And I'm just going to put my scissors into that notch that we just cut, and I'm going to go all the way around that top edge, and this is going to help us turn it out so it's nice and crisp. Okay, then I'm going to turn it out the right way, give that a nice press, and then I'm going to pop back and do top stitch 1/8 of an inch from the edge. If you're enjoying this tutorial, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more bag making tutorials and sewing tips. Okay, so if you're not doing any applique or anything, you then want to move ahead to the next step. I am going to be doing the applique, so I'm going to show you how to do that in the video in the link in the description below. Okay, so moving along, I'm going to put that to one side, and we're going to go ahead and complete the inside parts. So for the inside pocket, we're going to need one of our lining pieces in pattern piece 1. We're going to need our 2 pattern piece 5s, and then in a little bit we're going to need our pattern piece 7, which is the slip pocket. So we're going to need our pattern piece 1 as well, because we're going to need to mark down where our hole is. And so I want to lay this pattern piece on top, the pocket, and it needs to be 3.5 centimetres lower than that top edge. So I've got my slightly old and well-loved tape measure. So I'm just going to pop that down with my friction pen. I'm going to make a little mark and follow that central line so that I know where I want it to hit. So lay that on and open it up again. Make sure it's straight. Then with that in place, I'm going to lay over my pattern piece, and I don't know if you can see, but to get the mark, all I've done is I've cut a kind of 3 short edges on the end so that I can peel back the pattern piece and I can mark that in place. Okay, and then I've done the same here, marked my little notches. Like I say, you won't have that yellow line, so ignore that yellow line. There was a bit of an error in the pattern writing on that stage, but I've corrected that now. Then we want to place the other side on and draw the other side of the zipper pocket, like so. And then we want to line up and mark the zipper pocket hole. I think that mark, I must have done the yellow line on that one. Just ignore that upper one. So that is exactly straight now for my zipper pocket. Pop some pins in. And then I'm going to take that over to the machine and I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to go all the way down one of the long edges. Just before I get to the end, I'm going to go from a 2.5 stitch length down to around a 2, and that's going to help me to hit that corner dead on. I'm then going to leave the needle in, lift up the foot, turn the work, complete that short edge, do the same, needle down, lift up the foot, turn the work, continue along that next long edge for about an inch. Then I'm going to increase the stitch length up to 2.5, go all the way down that edge, and then complete the other corner of the zipper in the same way, reducing the stitch length down to 2 and then lifting it up on the other side after I've gone about an inch to 2.5, back to where we started. Okay, so now I've got that sewn in. We're now going to cut. You don't need to draw it, I'm just drawing it so that it's easier to see. You need to cut 2 kind of forks, one at each end, and then you need to cut all the way down that middle line. You want to keep your snips not too close, or your cuts not too close to those stitches, but also not too far away. You want to go as close as you can there so that it gets a nice turn. Then we're going to pop it through to the other side, and we want to press that really nice and crisply in place. Okay, so that's really nicely pressed in so that the pocket piece is kind of showing a bit more to the back, so I've pushed it a bit more to the back. I did, however, have a bit of a boo-boo. I put my iron on a little bit too hot and it ate a bit of the interfacing, so that is mega annoying, but that's okay. You can't see it, it's going to be fine, it's just on the lining. I'm just going to peel away those crispy edges. So yeah, check your temperature before doing that and use a Teflon sheet, which I'm always talking about, and I didn't do it just then. Okay, now we're going to grab our number 3 zipper and we're going to place it in that opening, and we're going to grab some double-sided tape to hold that in place. And you can find links to everything I use in the description below as well if you're wanting to get hold of any of these different items. Then you want to go ahead and stitch around that zipper hole with a 2.5 stitch length. Okay, now we've done that, we're going to turn it over and we're going to grab our other pocket piece and we're going to lay that right sides together and we're going to pin that in place. Then we're going to use our zipper foot and we're going to stitch the 3 edges, so the 2 short sides and the long side at the top. We're going to go in about an inch on each side at the bottom, and then we're going to leave that as a turning hole because we're going to come back to that and use that a bit later. Then we're going to put that to one side for later. Now, while we're in the zipper mode, we're going to do exactly the same to the back piece. So while we're in that zipper mode, we're going to do the same thing to the outer pattern piece 1, the back one. Okay, so this is the one that we put our fusible foam on with the cutout in, and we want to grab our other pocket piece, pocket lining, and that is pocket piece 6, and we're going to place that 1 centimetre down, whoops, from the right sides together. So we're going to want to find the centre again. Mark on our centre using our pattern piece. It's not already marked on. And while you're here, if you haven't done it already, you want to mark on the notches from the pattern. so you can mark it through. You're going to need those for later. Okay, so we've done the other zipper pocket for the inside. Now we're going to do the outer one. So I've gone ahead and done exactly the same as we did before. We've got that fusible foam in the way on this one. Just a note that the previous part of the video I did have the wrong fusible foam attached to the back of my pattern piece, so that's why it looked a bit strange with the cutter at the top. So huge apologies for that. I now have the correct one moving forward. So I've gone ahead and done that zipper hole, zipper pocket hole, and I have pressed the back, done it exactly the same way as before. What I don't do though, when I come to the corners, I don't decrease the stitch length around these corners. I keep it at a 2.5. You don't want to perforate the vinyl if you're using vinyl too much. If you're using cotton for the outside, then that's fine. You can do it in that way where you decrease it, get it really spot on. When it comes to pressing with the fusible fleece in the way of fusible foam, I like to use one of these Sew Line glue pens, and you can put a line of glue, you can see a bit of the blue there, behind, and then you can use it to really pull the lining back. You can even use an iron to dry it as well. It's kind of temporary, which is great because we want it to come up a little bit for sewing in a bit, and that just keeps it down. Can you see the seam allowance there is pinned down in the same way, and it helps to pull it all nice and crisply out the way. So just like before, I'm going to place my zipper behind, and then I'm going to top stitch around. Then I'm going to pull up the bottom of that pocket and stitch around those 3 sides to completely finish the pocket. Okay, so there's our zipper pocket finished. We're going to put that to one side, and we're going to move on to the slip pocket, and that is pattern piece 7. And we want to open it up so that it is wrong sides together, and crease it along that top edge, and then we're going to stitch 1/8 of an inch along that top stitching. Okay, then we're going to get our lining zipper pocket that we had earlier, that we made earlier, and we're going to lay our slip pocket on top. Okay, and we're going to lay it so that it's matching that bottom edge. We're going to flip it over and pop that pocket up and out of the way, and I'm just going to pin that up out of the way because we do not want to catch that by mistake in any way. And then we're going to baste within the seam allowance, so 1/2 centimetre within that seam allowance along that edge. So we're going to move along to our zipper panel now. So you want to grab your 2 zipper panel pieces, your outer pieces, and you want to make sure that the side with the smaller seam allowance, the 7mm or 1/4 inch, is facing the zipper. Okay, and we're going to have, we just need 2 at the minute, we just need 1 of each, the outer and the lining. Put the other one to the side for a minute. And we're going to use our double-sided tape, and we're going to place 1 along the edge of the zipper. And we're going to place the outer piece face down along the edge of the zipper so that our short seam allowance is facing that edge. And we're going to baste that within the seam allowance, so about 1/2 centimetre along that edge. Then we're going to turn the zipper panel over, and we're going to lay our lining right side down onto the wrong side of the zipper. I'm going to put some more double-sided. Okay, then we're going to stitch that 7mm or 1/4 inch from the edge. So now that line's stitched, we're just going to flip it all over so that they are wrong sides together. And then we're going to top stitch along that edge 1/8 of an inch from the edge on the vinyl side, just to keep it all nicely together. Okay, then we're going to repeat that on the other side. So we're going to get our double-sided tape and our outer main piece, and make sure again that we're putting the thinner side towards the zipper. Double-sided tape. And we're going to baste within that seam allowance. Okay, then I'm going to flip the whole thing over and I'm going to put my lining on the back, right side down to the wrong side of the zipper, do the double-sided and stitch it just like before with a 7mm seam allowance all along that edge. Flip the whole thing so that the lining and the outer are wrong sides together, and top stitch just like we did on the first side. Okay, so we're going to put that to one side, and then we're going to move along to the strap connectors. And what we need to do is we need to draw a line down the middle. So this is the same as if you were making your strap. We're going to do it in the same way. So I'm going to just draw a line down each one. You don't have to use a friction pen, it will never be seen. And then I'm going to fold each long edge in to meet it in the middle. And because I'm using cotton woven, I'm going to press these as well. Really important that you use a woven interfacing for this bit. You could also use a Decaville, although it will bump up your seams, so that may be tricky depending on your machine. So just bear that in mind. It needs to be a good, strong interfacing. Don't use a non-woven because it's got a bit of give and a bit of stretch and it's not as strong. So I'm going to press those in place, and then I'm going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch from each edge on both. And if you're using vinyl or faux leather, I would put double-sided tape in the middle and push that down to meet it, just like if you were doing a strap. Okay, so I've got my strap connectors, got a little bit of burr nesting going on there, I'm not sure what happened there. But I'm going to slide on my D-rings in place. Pop a clip on. And then I'm going to stitch really close to the D-ring using my zipper foot. Then we're going to grab our zipper panel and we're going to place each strap so that they are wrong side down to the zipper panel, and then we want to have 1 inch overhanging this edge clear, and they need to be centered. Okay, we're going to baste that about 1/8 of an inch from the edge so that it's well within the seam allowance. And we're going to do the same on the other side. And I've popped my tag in there so that it's ready for the next bit. Then we're going to grab our gusset outer and our lining, and we're going to place the outer right sides down, and we're going to clip, and then we're going to baste within the seam allowance again 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and we're going to do the same on the other side. And you want to be basting and catching the lining of the zipper panel and basically the whole of the zipper panel and the top gusset in place so it's all nice and secure. Okay, then I'm going to flip the whole thing over and I'm going to grab my lining and I'm going to place that right side down to the lining of the zipper panel. I'm going to clip that in place. And the same with the other side. The gusset is a bit longer, so you're going to have that kind of gapping there, that's fine. Okay, then we're going to sew 1 centimetre from the edge on both sides. And we're going to stop and start 1 centimetre from the edge. Okay, so I've stitched that again 1 centimetre from each edge, started and stopped, and I've done that on both ends. My machine didn't like that too much. I would recommend using a hump jumper if you have one, and probably a zipper foot as well to get in close to that fusible foam. Okay, so now we've done that, we're going to flip it the right way out. Okay, so now we've turned that the right way. We then want to top stitch along the gusset edge, and we want to top stitch about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, but we want to make sure that we're pulling this lining of the gusset out the way, not just the main bit of the lining but the seam allowance as well. It's really important because we're going to need to get in there a bit later when we sew the bag together. Okay, so we're pulling the gusset lining and seam allowance out the way and top stitching along that edge. You also want to do that on the other side as well. Okay, so now we've top stitched, we just want to, for me, I'm going to just clip my label out the way, and then we're going to pop a rivet in there, and the rivet needs to go from the outer through the fusible foam and into the strap connector. That's why we have an excess of 1 inch. And we want to pop a little bit of Decaville light behind that as well, just to add a little bit extra strength. And I'm popping my rivet in 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch down from that edge. And here's a little trick that I learned from Country Cow Designs. If you're using fancy rivets like I am with the rainbow colour, you can use a different colour of which you may have more of, or they're cheaper, on the back. So that saves a bit of cost. So I'm doing that for mine. So that's why they're rainbow on the front and gunmetal on the back. Okay, so now we're going to move on to sewing our gusset and our zipper panel to our main panels. The first thing we want to do is we want to snip all the way around both the gusset and the outer panels. We're going to snip in the seam allowance 0.5 centimetres all the way around. This is going to help us get round those curves and around the ears of the cat. And I'm cutting about 0.5 centimetre as well as I go. Okay, so then you want to have the outer facing the inside with the lining on the outside. Okay, so then we need to baste the outer slip pocket to the front main panel, pattern piece 1, and we're going to clip and baste within the seam allowance 1/8 of an inch from that edge. With mine, because I've got those applique whiskers, I want to make sure that those are really out of the way when I do the basting. Okay, so then once we've snipped all around the edge, we want to make sure that the outer fabric is on the inside. Then we are going to start attaching our main panels. So we want to make sure that we've got it the right way up for the front. So I'm going to have it that way round so that then, my label is on the correct way when I turn it. I want to push that lining of the gusset out of the way so that's not in the way and restricting. And then we're going to place our outer piece right side down to the gusset. Right, first of all though, I need to make sure, I've noticed that I've not marked on my centre points and my notches on the side. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. You also want to go ahead and check that you've done your marks for the middle of the zipper panel and the gusset. And pop those on. Okay, so all of my marks are done. Then I want to make sure that got it the right way out. So I've got the outer on the inside. Take my lining from my gusset out of the way so it's not going to be restricting. Then we want to take our main panel that we made earlier and we're going to place it right sides down, and we're going to match up the middle at the bottom. We're going to match up the notch at the side with the seam on the gusset to the zipper panel. And you want to make sure that you're pulling the lining out of the way when you do this. We're just catching that fusible foam and the outer fabric of the zipper panel with the outer of the front. We're going to clip it all the way around. It's really important when we come to this bit here. I'm just going to unstitch that. I'm going to clip those stitches just so we've got a bit of extra room, so we can get in there and stitch close to it without stitching on the lining. Okay, so now that's stitched, we're then going to be doing that same front side lining. Okay, so we want to be grabbing that same edge of lining, not this one. We're grabbing this one. We're going to push everything else inside, and then it's going to be this edge. And everything's going to be kind of squished inside, but that's okay. It's going to be fine. And then we want to pin and match up like we did before, all those marks, all those notches. So that's all clipped, and then I'm going to stitch 1 centimetre from the edge all the way around. It gets a bit tricky on this bit, so that's why I'm going to be using a zipper foot. And I'm stitching this with a 2.5 stitch length because this is on the cotton. I must admit, this is the trickiest bit of the bag, so just go slowly, take it easy, don't be too hard on yourself, take a break and come back to it if you need to. You'll get there, just know that it is tricky for everyone. Okay, so I've sewn all the way around that lining, then we're going to pop that round to the other side, so the kind of right way out, still inside out, isn't it? It's the lining. We're going to pop that round to that side. Then we're going to open up our zipper. Then we are going to be stitching on the back main panel. Okay, so that's the one with the zip, of course, the zipper pocket. And we're going to do exactly the same as we did on the front. We're going to match up the middle marks and the 2 notches. I'm going to clip all the way around, and then we're going to sew with a 1 cm seam allowance using our zipper foot, and we're going to make sure we're not catching any of the lining as we go. Okay, so now that's sewn, we're then going to do the lining. And so what we need to do is we need to really squish everything in, and we're going to be doing the same as we did on the front lining. we're going to do for the back. So we want to grab that piece of lining. We're going to match up those notches, top and bottom, side and side. I'm going to use pins actually, a little bit better on the lining. And we are going to leave an opening in the bottom of around 6 inches. Okay, so now that's all sewn up, we can turn it the right way out. So you want to reach through and we're going to birth the bag. And then finally we're going to open up the zipper on the inside, reach through the hole in the bottom of the pocket and grab the lining. So you can pull it right the way out as much as you can, and then match up our middle marks, the lining that we just sewed. Right sides together, and we can stitch up that hole in the lining there. Take the pin out and push it back inside. Now our gusset is all nicely sewn, and then we can pull out that zipper pocket and we can hand or machine stitch that hole closed. And there we have our Hello Kitty bag. I really hope you've loved this tutorial. Coming up on the screen right now are some more videos that I think you're going to love. I'll see you on the next video.